All right. Damn.
All right.
Okay. Can you hear yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, damn. Hey, internet. Hey, everybody. So this is probably like the 5th or 6th time that I have tried to do this podcast, and like I'll start it and then it'll go away for I'll do like maybe 2 episodes, maybe 3, and then it'll go away for like months. So hopefully this one actually sticks. I made a schedule earlier today. So I'm trying to like every Thursday I want to record this podcast. I want to edit it and upload it on Fridays. So if I can get myself to fucking do that, I'm going to do it. But, you know, life is weird like that. You know, you never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. So we're just going to see how long I can keep it going. Maybe forever. You know, but we were just talking about that forever is not real.
Sure.
No. But that it's like, you know, you can't guarantee any forever anything. But yeah, I'm here with Swoon. I know him as JD, but you guys know him as Swoon.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, so we're gonna try to do a fucking podcast. So I just made you steak. How would you say that steak was?
It was good. It was really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I made it in the air fryer. I don't.
Yeah. It was better than I thought it was gonna be.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my mom showed me how to make it in the air fryer, and I'm like, I can just do this because the air fryer is actually the best thing in the world because I never actually have to cook anything.
Yeah. I like air fryers.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so first thing, you guys just did a show. You just did a show.
Mm-hmm.
You did a DJ set and put together this whole Dearly collective show with Jello, Jackson, and Andrea.
Yep.
How was that, and how was the process of doing that?
It was good. Yeah, it was, you know, the process of putting it together, I think, was stressful, as always, with these shows, especially these Dearly shows that we've been doing, just because we kind of have it as a standard to do our own thing, I guess, and not really just show up to a venue and just do things the way that they normally do things in regard to lighting or decor, in regard to, you know, any of that kind of stuff. So, so there's a lot of planning that goes into them, a lot of thought, a lot of, you know, drawing diagrams of the stage with the dimensions and figuring out, you know, where things can go and all that kind of stuff, and coming up with tons of ideas and cutting most of the ideas when they don't work or when they're, you know, yeah.
What ideas didn't work?
Well, so the initial idea, I mean, there were ideas that made it to the day of and just we didn't end up doing because it just didn't like happen. It just was too much. But, well, first of all, I mean, we had other ideas for just the whole show, like the overall theme of the show, which ended up being this sort of thing about excess and about and clothing, and we turned it into a clothing drive and all that stuff. But that wasn't the initial idea. There were other ideas. I mean, one of them was, you know, we were trying to figure out some kind of way. This was the first time that the 4 of us were going to perform separate sets, whereas the last time it was the 4 of us together in one. So that was a little easier to plan for because, you know, it was all 4 of us, like, you know, in one set. And so all we had to do was kind of find some way to connect sort of our aesthetics, I guess, which, you know, aren't necessarily super defined always, but something that we all could kind of connect to, I guess. One idea that we could all connect to that was, you know, so the difficult part, I guess, was just getting us all to agree, which wasn't that difficult because we already get along really well and stuff. So that, from that point forward, though, it was easy because it was just like, well, it's just one set. So we figure out one thing and then that's what it is. With this, it was like, okay, now we have to find some kind of theme, some kind of like stage theme or aesthetic or whatever that can encompass 4 sets. So, going in, one thing we knew we couldn't do that we did in the first one was, we had somebody like controlling the lights and had like lighting cues and stuff for the music, which was really awesome. But it's kind of a lot to ask of someone to do for 4 sets without paying them a lot of money, and the money was something that we didn't really have a lot of. So, so we just knew going in, like, okay, we can't do that. So we have to simplify. We have to kind of like, in a sense, take it from being this like, not like something that I guess width-wise was not a lot. Didn't have to go very far before. It just had to encompass one set, but could be very sort of vertically complex, so to speak. Now we had to like flatten the idea a little bit so that it could spread over the course of a whole night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, there was just a lot of discussion about that. Like, okay, how do we simplify? How do we figure that out, and et cetera? One thing that we knew going in, which has just been something that we have sort of decided, something that I always knew, or not always, but I'm saying something that I'd known for a long time that I felt very strongly about, that we ended up deciding as a group would be, a sort of trademark thing, is just to never use the house lights of a venue. Just because over time I just grew to hate house lights. Like I grew to hate the way that most venues, particularly local venues, the way that they light shows. It's very cheesy to me. It's very, it's so vague and so characterless, and it just felt like a weird thing. The more I thought about it, the more I started to think like, what a powerful thing to just give a stranger power over, or give a stranger the control of.
Yeah.
Because the lighting of your show is like such a big part of how, it's everything. Literally, it's how people will see you. If there's no light, right? Like you start with the idea of like absolutely no light in a venue. No one can see anything, right? So it's like, that's first. You turn on one light, that now immediately defines the way that people are experiencing the show, right? This one light. If you put on 2 lights, the combination of those 2 lights now, define what the visuals of the show will look like, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So that combination, that thing is so important and so complex, and there's so much you can do within that it just felt weird to me that it was like, it's like if you're making a video, if you're making like a music video or a film or something, like you would never just like default the lights. Like that's everything. It's literally everything visually. So I just felt like for a show, it just doesn't make sense to do it that way. So anyway, so that was something we knew going in for sure, was like, we have to figure out our own lighting setup for sure, always. And then, how do we find a theme that then can connect to all these things? So I don't know. I'm kind of just, I'm yapping now about, the details of it. But it's just a lot of like, function first. Like, what can we do? Like, what do we have at our disposal? What kind of lights do we have? What kind of stuff do we have? And then how do we come up with some concept that can connect all these things together in a way that's, that makes sense. So we came up with different things. Some things made sense. Some things maybe not as much, or seemed more difficult or whatever. And then this clothes idea, I think Andrea came up with it initially. It just came out of like this idea of like an image of like clothes everywhere and stuff, and then we were like, oh, that would be cool with this, and we just started throwing more ideas at it and everything. But then again, initially that idea was way bigger. Like it was like, clothes all over the stage, and like we were also gonna, like, the first idea actually, or one of the first ideas, was like essentially to recreate the same stage setup that we did at the Moroccan, which was essentially a living room. If you remember, it was like a rug and a little coffee table and a couch and all these different things and lamps and whatever. So it was like, I was like, what if we recreate that, but then as it goes on, it's getting eaten essentially by and buried by clothes, because the idea was like, oh, we're going to have clothes on the stage, and then like maybe throughout the show, set by set, the stage just gets more and more buried in clothes. You know what I mean? And then like, I liked the idea of recreating the first one, but just this time kind of deconstructed or like fucked up in a sense. Like it's just getting more and more buried, because the first 2 sets were full bands. So they were all like 5 or 6 people. And then the third set, Andrea's set, was only going to be 3 people, and then me at the end as a DJ set is just 1. So I was like, well, it makes sense that less and less of the stage becomes like habitable. You know, like you can like there's less and less space on the stage as the show goes on because there's less and less people on the stage set by set. So anyway, it's just like a lot of discussions about that kind of stuff, like how to, you know, direct the show, I guess, from one place to the other. But then like we realized that the stage wasn't big enough to recreate the set exactly the way we had it before, so we ended up just cutting that whole idea. And anyway, so things just, you know, don't go according to plan always, so you just adjust.
Yeah. I like how you guys went about it though, because I knew about that idea before the show. I think that if other people didn't know about that, it didn't come across as anything like, oh, they didn't do this thing.
Oh, of
or
course.
whatever.
Yeah.
No, and you guys, I like that you guys do, when you guys do these shows, it is such an emphasis on like kind of community and keeping it close and making it feel very home-like. It just feels intimate. Like you guys, like even like the lamps that you guys choose, like they're like house lamps or like table lamps.
Totally.
And yeah, I think that creates subconsciously so much ease in people. And like the raffle that you guys did at the end was awesome. Yeah. I forgot that Gamby was playing the guitar the entire time during until the end, but they were doing like doom 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 doom.
Yeah, that was like a last minute thing that they came up with.
Yeah. No.
It was funny.
Yeah, no, they're awesome for that. I love the way that you guys go about these shows, and
thanks, man.
Yeah, I was happy to be a part of it too. I played for Jello, which he did such a good job for his first show.
Oh yeah.
I'm very proud of him. Jackson too.
Yeah.
I was surprised that was also Jackson's first performance.
Totally. Yeah. No, it was. I felt like their night for sure. Like in the best way possible. Like, you know, because I actually was just talking to Jackson about that today. But you know, both of them, it was both their first performances, and I you know, nobody had any expectations going in to what they were going to see in regard to them. You know, for Andrea and I feel like, you know, they're you know, first of all, I think the majority of the people maybe were friends of ours, I guess, or were people who, you know what I mean? I just feel like with Jello, for example, like he doesn't even have music out. So it's like, you know, and people came to support him and stuff, and same with Jackson, but musically, I don't think there was any sort of like, oh, I'm going to go because I know that they're going to put on some great show or something. Like there's no expectation. There's no precedent. So everyone there was like surprised. Everyone there was like, whoa, this is really sick. Like, you know, no expectations, and both of them just killed it. Like insane. So, and I talked to a lot of people after the show and after their sets who said the same thing, who were like, you know, I talked to a lot of people, for example, who I invited, who, you know, who maybe didn't even know anything about the two of them or had never met them or anything, who afterward were like fans, you know, totally. So it really felt like just watching these two artists like really being born, like in front of your face, you know, which is amazing.
Yeah, I was surprised that Andrea did a more stripped down set. But that was cool. I liked that it was like drum machine or like, you know, programmed drums with John and Gamby just lightly, you know, kind of peppering it. Yeah. And just very raw, and just her voice and stuff. Totally. Yeah. Definitely made me emotional. I actually cried at one point too. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It was just powerful. And then your DJ set, bro, you were fucking flipping shit, man. Like I was. Thanks. I haven't heard a lot of DJ sets, so I can't really like speak on it too much. But I feel like you have such a particular aesthetic when it comes to it, and like what you choose. How do you choose what you're gonna put in your set?
I mean, thank you first of all for saying that. I mean, I think that I think you're right. Like I that's by design to some extent, because I have, like, I started DJing before I did anything else in music. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time watching people DJ. I've spent a lot of time learning about what DJing is. And I kind of stopped doing it for many years, and then recently sort of picked it back up. And I think it's because I found a new perspective on DJing that I feel like really made me excited about it again. And so, and it's a lot of what you're saying essentially is like doing it sort of my own way. But how I choose the songs, I mean, I just honestly, like, it's kind of random. I mean, I make playlists. You know, I mean, I love music, so I just listen to music all the time. So when I'm hearing stuff that I have an idea for that I think could be interesting, like an interesting way of flipping something or an interesting way of performing it, or even just the idea of playing something being interesting, like, oh, like this kind of song would be crazy to DJ because I don't ever hear anybody play something like this, you know, something like that. I'll just put it into a playlist, you know, but then when I'm actually making the DJ set, I always kind of just start with a song. I just like choose the first song, which is always like important to me, is like, what is the start of it, you know?
What was the first song on this one?
It's this Italian song. It's by it's an Italian song, but it's sung by a Brazilian artist. It's just someone that Andrea showed me. His name's like Caetano Veloso or something like that.
Okay.
And I mean, it's a beautiful song. You know, she showed me that song like years ago, and I've always thought it was amazing. And then, yeah, I just thought it'd be awesome to start with this like very dramatic, very beautiful, theatrical, almost operatic song. And then, you know, I had the idea of starting with that song a while ago, but then one day I actually went and I was able to like mix it in with like a dance song, like an actual like techno song essentially. And once I was able to like make that happen and make it sound good, then I was like, okay, now I have something. And then so then from that point, it's like, okay, from this Italian song, like the only other song I could imagine, you know, I mean, obviously I'm sure there's other songs I could mix it in with, but you know, I found one avenue essentially, you know what I mean? Like, cause it's like, here's the jump off point. I'm trying to like find where I can go, and I'm hitting walls everywhere. And then it's like, okay, this song worked. Great. So now I'm here. So now that I'm here, like, where do I go? What can I do next? And then, you know, I just try shit. I just like experiment or come up with an idea and be like, well, maybe this song, maybe that song. And then it just keeps going and it keeps going. So I literally go like that though. Like song by song, like, and then craft the whole set like that.
Yeah. So are you thinking about the overarching kind of shape of the set, like how the audience is going to experience it, and like, you know, like, oh, I'm going to take them here for a while because I know that the payoff is going to be this, or like.
Yeah, I am to some extent. You know, if I feel like I've been maybe in a vibe for too long, or, you know, it just really depends. But yeah, I do think about it for sure. I mean, I don't think that I go in with like an overall, you know, I mean, it depends. I think in some cases I do maybe go in thinking a little more thematically overall. Like I want a certain kind of sound or something. Like at the Moroccan Lounge when we played like a couple of months ago, you know, the whole vibe of that was supposed to be kind of, I don't know, punky or grungy or whatever, like indie. Certain kinds of sounds I knew were more fitting into the theme of the show that we were playing. So I was trying to stay within that range to some extent. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, you know, if I'm going in a certain direction, I have a couple of songs, then by, you know, let's say I'm 5 songs deep and I'm like, okay, I'm in this vibe. I'll be like, okay, well now I want to fuck it up a little bit. Now I want to maybe like throw something in that I wouldn't have expected. Because you could also, you know, you could also just play it safe and be like, you know, because every song of a certain genre, you know what I mean, like a certain kind of like techno or something, I could just do the whole set being that, and I would love that. It'd be fun and I would enjoy that. But you know, I'm trying to excite myself. So when I get excited when I'm like mixing in 2 songs that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have thought would mix well together or whatever, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but at the end of the day, I'm really just trying to have fun with it. Like I'm not I'm just trying to do something that's interesting or whatever. I think the part that makes it more interesting, or if anything, the part that I feel like sets it apart from the way other DJs do a lot of the time, is that I'm a producer. Like more than, you know, I've produced now far longer than I was ever a DJ. So, you know, so the thing that got me to DJ again was when I started to think of it in that way, where it's like, oh, this is just sequencing. Like DJing is really just sequencing. It's the same as sequencing an album, which is something that I've always like loved. I've always loved the idea of, and like I've always thought about is like, you know, how to sequence stuff. Like, you know, when you're even just making one song, you're sequencing sections, like parts of a song, structuring the song, you know. But then you have like, if you're sequencing a project like a EP or an album, now you're sequencing multiple songs and you're trying to think like, what's the beginning of this experience? What is the next part? And what is the next part? And how does it move forward? You know, it's like scenes in a movie. Like, you know, the first scene is always so important because it does one thing, but then where do you go from there? You know, if you go from one scene that's super, you know, maybe high energy or like very intense, and then you have the next scene be very intense again, you're kind of setting a vibe for the film, and it can work really well. But then you could be the opposite. You could have a really crazy intense scene, and then all of a sudden the next scene is like, you know, a complete opposite vibe. And that's such a deliberate choice that will have an effect, you know? So with DJing, I was like, oh, you're doing the same thing, but you have permission to use anything that you want, not just your own music. You're sequencing essentially an hour-long album or whatever, 2 hours, however long you want to do it. But you know, it's like your imaginary album of all your favorite music ever, you know? Cool. So that just was like, man, that sounds like the most fun ever. And it's not even just music. I mean, really, you could use any sound, you know, any recorded sound ever. You know, you could just play and do, you know what I mean? And like create any sort of experience. And, you know, I feel like I'm just at the beginning of kind of exploring that concept. But so I haven't really, I mean, there's just so much, it's endless that you could do with that. But, you know, it's really ripe for like, you know, creativity, I feel like. So that really made me excited, and that's kind of the standpoint that I'm taking with it.
How much of that is in the moment that you're making those decisions on, I'm going to play this, and how much of it is completely like pre-planned and written out?
Up to this point, the whole sets are pre-planned. The whole sets, I know every move.
Okay.
I'm setting it up ahead of time with every move. So I'm essentially like, what I do right now is I actually build the entire set on Ableton, like meaning like as if I'm making a song, like the timeline on Ableton, or I forget what it's called, like not live mode, but the other one, session mode.
Oh yeah.
So in session mode, I'm building it out like that because I'm just trying to like, I'm trying to figure out what I want it to sound like, and then I'm like working backwards and I'm deconstructing it and being like, how do I now do this all live? Like do it on here.
You're
basically
using a push.
Yeah, I'm using a push. Yeah, which makes that a lot easier, to be honest. Because like,
so you launch the song and then can you crossfade and do?
Yeah, I have. And so basically, I have it. I'm running through Ableton, so I have, but not the same. It's not in session mode now. It's in live mode. So it'd be in a separate session, or in a separate, you know, project. I mean, and each song is now separate. And now whatever I decided I want to do, so like if I'm mixing one song with another and I know that I want like reverb and I want this and I want different things, I have that all set to the knobs so I can do that all live. But I know what I'm going to do. Like I know ahead of time, you know, I mean, with some degree of like certainty, you know, there's room for like whatever to fuck around to some extent, but I know I'm getting from here to here and then getting from there to there and getting from there to there, whatever. But yeah, I have like plugins that are like running and then mapped to the knobs and to different buttons. And so, yeah, I just launch songs and then I'll launch the next song when I know I want it to be, and etc. and kind of like try and move it forward that way. And then a lot of the time, like, you know, what I'll do is like, I'm editing songs a lot too. So like, and that's the other aspect of, you know, to even take it one step further, in regard to this concept of how to DJ, like, not only do you have the ability to sequence your own dream album, you know what I mean, of like an hour long or whatever, but you can then take it one step further and like edit the songs however much you want. So restructuring songs, removing parts that I don't want from certain songs, whatever, I can do whatever with it. And now, especially with the ability to stem songs through AI, now I mean,
that shit's crazy.
I can do anything. You know what I mean? So, so like on this last, DJ set, I did this song, or I did this like transition essentially, So okay, there was a song I wanted to play that I really loved, like the main sort of part of the song, like we'll say like the drop of the song, like the when it gets really, intense and dancey and everything. So I really wanted to use that, but I didn't like at all the anything around it, like anything before it, anything after it, and etc. I didn't like the way that it like went into the part and everything. I just liked the part itself. So I had a different song that I liked, that I only really liked the beginning of, like, or I kind of liked the rest of it, but there was this beginning part that was just this beeping sound that was in like triplets, like and it was like really intense and kind of like grating. But I really liked it. I thought it was cool. Like I felt like it was very attention grabbing. Excuse me. And so I just took the beginning of that song and I took the main part of that song and I put them together. And then that beeping thing had like a little talking section right at the beginning that I then took and I put right in between the two. So it was like the beeping, and then I just had it kind of build, and then it all cuts out and the little talking thing just comes in for a second and then it goes into the song. So now it feels like a new song, which, I can do because I know how to, like, you know what I mean? Like when you know how to just put together a song, like it's easy to do that. You can just like, like cut and paste stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So now I have this song, and then at the end of it, I brought the beeping thing back in that was in triplets. And then one of the songs that I knew that I had in a playlist of songs that I wanted to play. So again, I'll have a playlist of like 100 songs, and I'm like looking through it, like what could I play next? Like what would fit. So there's one song in particular that I was having trouble with figuring out how to get into it, and it was I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry. Mm-hmm. And the thing that was tough about it, because it's in 4/4, and it's a 4 on the floor song, like it's like kind of like a house song almost to some extent. So I was like, this would be perfect, but it's in triplets. So in all the other songs I'm playing that have that same kind of beat, they're not in triplets. So so it's kind of hard to mix them together or whatever. But this beeping happened to be in triplets. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. So then at first I'm like, okay, let me just mix those two together. But then I realized, well, this would be interesting. Like the guitar of I Kissed a Girl is perfectly in triplets in the same way. So because it's like, like they're playing like that. So I stemmed the song, the Katy Perry song out, and I took just the guitar, and I made the intro just guitar, and then her vocals come in, and then the beat comes in afterward. So the end of the other song ends again with that triplet beeping. So it's like dee 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 dee, like beeping, and then as that's going on, the guitar starts playing underneath it. And then when I did that, I didn't have to do anything. It was already in key with each other. Like the beeping was perfectly in key with the Katy Perry song. So I was like, oh my God, like perfect. Like it worked, you know what I mean? And that happens all the time where it's just a random, like just by coincidence, two songs just really work well together, better than I would have even thought. So the beeping is perfectly in key with the guitar, and they're playing perfectly on top of each other in triplets. And then Katy Perry starts singing on top of it, and then the full beat comes in and it builds into that or whatever. So that was like really exciting. And then when that happens, you know what I mean? Like, or when in the moment when I figured that out, I was like, oh, this is sick. Like this is so crazy, So I figure all that out in the moment, like in Ableton, like just like doing the thing. And then I'm like, okay, now like, how do I want to recreate this live essentially? You know what I mean? And in that case, it was very simple, but yeah, it was just like launching it at the right time. And then, I know I want to like, build the reverb out and whatever, just different stuff as it goes on. But yeah, so it's like stuff like that's like the process of creating the whole set is I'm like coming up with ideas, trying things. And then sometimes it doesn't work at all, and I have to like scrap a whole thing, and it takes hours. I mean, it takes a long, long time. I've done 3 sets so far like this, and each one has taken like over like 20 hours, to figure out and put together.
How soon before the show do you start to do it? Are you a procrastinator?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it depends. With this one, it was I figured out the whole thing within like maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks. It was rough because I was also MDing Andrea's performance, and putting all that, putting the tracks together for that. And, there was, because she was doing a sort of unconventional way of performing for her, I had to kind of make certain drum tracks, little drum machine tracks.
Why
and
did
stuff
you guys
like
do it that way? Was it like an availability thing, or was it just
in part? I think, yeah, it was mainly out of necessity. I mean, we knew we didn't want to like, I mean, to be honest, with this whole show, like, it kind of, it didn't come out of nowhere. We knew it was coming, but, other things were happening, and there was a lot going on. So I think we kind of were short on time. So we were like, well, let's just do this, let's do the best we can and simplify or whatever. But so with Andrea, it was like, okay, yeah, I mean, a lot of her band wasn't available. And so we were just like, well, we came up with this idea. Like, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't it be cute to like do a little drum machine thing and stuff?
It was again, just like very intimate and nice. Like the only way I can describe it is that it felt like wood grain. Like, like it just felt very natural and simple, but like sturdy and wholesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Angelo's set was interesting because this was his first time. It was just his first time having to like lead a rehearsal too.
Right.
Which was...
And like direct a show.
Yeah. And because I don't have a lot of experience with that role, I have the experience from the shows that I've done. I'm gonna take my sweater off really quick.
Okay, keep
cool.
talking.
Yeah. Can you see what time it says? Is that 7:18? 16? Not to kill the illusion. Yeah, 7:16. 7:16. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, he doesn't really have experience leading rehearsals, so it was interesting for me to be in the situation that my band has been in with me. Because, and I told him beforehand, I was like, look, you're going to feel like shit after your first rehearsal, probably. And then that's really normal. Because that's how it's been for me. Anytime that I've like done a show and I'm rehearsing, or like it's been a while since I've done a show and then I rehearse for the first time before the show, it's just because people are still learning parts, and it's really hard to expect, other people to put in the amount of time for you in like that you. Yeah,
they're not going to match your enthusiasm.
Exactly, because it means so much to you, and it's still going to mean a lot to them, but not in the same way.
Of course.
And so, I kind of told them like, yeah, it's probably going to feel shitty after the first rehearsal a little bit. And things were actually pretty good. We're all good enough musicians that we can make it work.
Oh, it sounded great.
Yeah.
It sounded really great.
But like the first rehearsal, we were trying to do tracks. And
right. He told me, yeah.
Yeah. And every time that I've tried to run tracks, like I feel like so much planning has to go into that. Like, if you're going to run tracks, you need to know exactly what everything is going to be beforehand and kind of map out like, either your band's going to play it exactly how it's played on the track, or you just have to have a really good idea of what tone you really want.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of rehearsal because like when we did it without the tracks, there was wiggle room.
Yeah.
There was wiggle room for us to kind of like stay on a part or fuck up or anything.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And I felt like after the first rehearsal, when we went in, because we did 2 rehearsals. Yeah. After at the beginning of the second one, I had to break it to him, I think, or it was either at the end of the first one or the beginning. I'm like, dude, like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to run these tracks, man. Like, I don't like,
because it required you guys, or it required the band to like maybe learn the parts a little bit too specifically, or
it was that partially. Some of the tracks weren't built out yet, and there was just like technological malfunctions happening too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like we weren't able to like, I don't even know exactly what it was, but he was having some trouble on his end getting certain things to play, and it was eating up a lot of rehearsal time. And I'm we just don't have the time, to try that right now. And these are sounding good without the tracks. It's not going to be the exact same thing. Yeah. Plus it's a lot easier to run tracks when everybody has in-ears, but that's not the biggest deal. Like, most of the time the drummer.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had that.
Yeah. I guess I haven't really had that either. Like even Carter shows, like it's just Gio has the tracks and we follow along, but
yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, it just depends what your vision for the show is. I mean, I've worked with tracks a lot, and for me, it's never been a big issue. The main concern has always just been the mix, like, and the sound, and playing at these more local venues, like, the sound people have been great and everything, but I think, a lot of the time people can phone it in and stuff like that. I've dealt with that quite a lot. And, they're just not concerned enough to really try and make it sound good. And if you have a complex song with a lot of tracks and a lot of stuff going on, and you're mixing, 6 tracks with 5 players, like it's kind of hard to get that all to not just sound like mush.
Yeah.
Which it often does end up sounding like. So that's always been my biggest concern in regard to tracks. But I have also been in situations where we have to just cut the tracks because we're just like, well, it'll just be a lot easier to just play live. Or play without the tracks, I guess.
Yeah. For the next project that I'm doing, I feel like I have to use tracks for these songs because the sounds are really specific.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's the thing that you end up losing out on when you don't use tracks is you can't get those hyper specific sounds that are like, people remember that. Like there's certain artists that it wouldn't work without tracks.
Right.
Or certain songs.
I mean, I mean, it depends. I get what you mean though. Like I always think about that too. It's like the identity of the song. Like what is because there's certain things that like what is the core of the song, and if someone came to see you because they were a fan of a certain song or, their favorite song, whatever, like, and they didn't hear this thing, would they still think it's the song? Would it still feel like the same song? For some songs, it's not that. It's just, for some songs, it's just the vocals, so it's like, as long as you're singing the right thing, maybe and with the same chords, like, it doesn't matter what the instrumental is like, it's the same song. It'll still feel like the same song. But there's certain songs that it's like, if you don't have that thing, there's like maybe a certain sound that is like the sound, like it could be like a synth sound or some kind of sample or something, that if it doesn't have that thing, it just doesn't feel like the song anymore.
Yeah, it's like a generic.
It loses its core.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, if that sound happens to be something that you can't recreate live, then you just need tracks,
Yeah. And I want to use tracks because I feel like I can make a concise show that I know the exact time that it's going to be. I can plan out so much more, but it requires so much prep.
Yeah.
In terms of like putting the tracks together and getting the band to learn them exactly how they are and planning out stops and all kinds of stuff. And also just hoping that the software doesn't fuck up. Like I feel like the less amount of like points of failure that I can make, the better. But
I mean, that's definitely a big one with tracks. I mean, thankfully I've never had that issue. I mean, if you're running through Ableton, like, so long as you are running on a computer that doesn't usually give you issues, then you're probably, I mean, my laptop is fucking old and it's fallen apart, but I'm DJing off of it and I'm running tracks off of it. And every show we've done so far, like, actually that's not true. The last show we didn't use my laptop, but like this last show I ran tracks off of it with Andrea. Actually she triggered the tracks with the push, and then I was DJing with the push, and my laptop is terrible, but I've never run into issues, thankfully. So, it's fairly reliable. Obviously there's always the possibility of that. And that's why people, when you get to that place, people run redundancy, they run like multiple laptops at once so that if one fails, there's another one that's cool. Going as well. But that's,
I just learned about that like 6 months ago.
Yeah. That's, it's more complex and, takes money and resources and stuff to be able to do so. But I agree with you. I mean, if anything, I'm moving in the opposite direction. I mean, I think I'm going to use tracks still moving forward, but like, and I think for my own stuff, like I might just end up needing to use tracks in some cases, but, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of not having to. I kind of like the idea of like being able to like just have a set that's, if anything, like what I right now, what I really am in love with is this idea of like just like a 3-piece with nothing, like just a guitar, a bass, and a drum, like or guitarist, bassist, and drummer, and then like one of them, the guitarist plays or sings as well, or something like that. And that's it. Like that's all the sound you're hearing is just coming from this like small group of people, and it's very simple. Because I just feel like that's an interesting challenge creatively. Like, what can you do with that? How can you reinvent that? When it's been done a million times. But I don't know. I mean, my songs are very, based in samples and looping and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah, you would
so
just be creating that specific aesthetic for that.
Yeah. You're like you're like doing a different version of the songs essentially.
Yeah. It's like the Tiny Desk version. But yeah, no, I'm moving. Yeah, it's interesting that we are moving in opposite directions because like I feel like I want to try doing the hyper specific thing this time around. Also, like I'm even thinking of like not playing guitar as much for the shows because every show that I've done, I've been like playing guitar and singing. It's just like a lot to try to split my brain between,
Right.
and I can't focus as much on like being like a performer, you know. And I want to be able to do shit like choreography and stuff like that. Like I just think that would be really fun to bring those kind of shows, like that, like the show that I did at Pop with like
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah, I had
the masks and stuff.
Yeah, with the dancing rats and stuff. I mean, that was literally I thought of that when I got there. Like,
Yeah.
it was just like, oh, you guys should, yeah. But I want to. I don't know. I'm excited for this next era of me. I'm also tired of it. I've been working on this project for like a fucking year and a half.
Yeah, man, you got to get stuff
I
out.
know. Yeah, but it's coming out.
No, I feel you. I mean, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. But
I've also been sitting on this stuff for a long time.
Releases are on the way right now, though. Like I'm working on a video that's going to be coming out with a single pretty soon.
Yeah.
And I'm working on another thing with Stone and Daryl. And yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, I think fuck it. I mean, you're working hard. You're working on it for a reason. You know, this long for a reason.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, and I think it's a timing thing. Like I think that there is a thing about synchronicities and about things happening when they're supposed to, or like maybe the only time that they can happen. And I'm just gonna continue to believe that because
I mean, it's not worth it to dwell on whether or not you could have.
I just don't think that free will is real. I just don't really believe in that, you know. But I'm gonna choose to be deluded and delusional about that because it's way more fun.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I'm in a place right now where I think, you know, I've been essentially on hiatus as an artist for a long time and, you know, just been producing, which has been great. I've learned a lot and I've loved what I've done and I've loved the music that I've been able to work on because of it and the people that I've been able to work with. And etc. Like I have no regrets at all in regard to any of that, but I do think that I started to get comfortable. You could say comfortable, I guess, in that zone a little bit, even though it didn't really feel necessarily like me. You know, and I feel like just because I think I've always had ideas and, you know, opinions about how I want to do things. And, you know, and in collaborations, the nature of a collaboration is always compromise. So, which is fun and amazing to be able to do. But, you know, I think I've always craved the outlet of my own thing where I could do it exactly the way that I saw fit. And so I was doing it for a while years ago, when I was putting out my own music and stuff. But I mean, this is long enough ago now that that it just feels unrecognizable. The music that I was doing at that time and etc. I just feel like I've just evolved so much since then. I've learned so much since then. I've, you know, I so much has changed about the way that I approach making music. So much has changed about the way that I approach, you know, putting out music and making visuals and just everything. Everything has just been completely reinvented and has evolved so much that, you know, I feel like I'm at a place right now where I feel like ready, I guess, to like make a push again and like put the music out and put myself out there and, you know, just everything. Like, and I'm excited for it. I'm really, really excited for it. And we'll see, I guess, where that goes, you know, but hopefully it goes well. I mean, I don't know. I feel confident, I guess, you know, that I have enough of a thing to say that it will carry me forward, I guess, you know.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that's about all the time that we have. I got to go pick up Stone from work.
Nice.
And yeah, so this has been the Hummingbird Podcast. This has been a conversation with Swoon, aka JD. aka Julio, aka my fucking bro. And I want to do more. And thank you for watching. And I think that my favorite part of these is just the fact that we can look back on it if we want to in the future and just,
Definitely.
you know, remember where we were at. So this is where we were at.
Hell yeah.
Yep. And we'll see where we go.
All right.
All right.